Welcome to Sustainability Unplugged, a podcast by Gaea where we engage industry leaders in candid conversations at the intersection of sustainability, innovation, and corporate responsibility. I'm Jessica Scopacasa, your host and the co-founder of Gaea. Today's episode is about turbulence and resilience. As the US backtracks on ESG and the EU seems to be softening its green ambition, we're seeing a global reset on sustainability. But in the middle of this uncertainty, the UAE just passed its first climate law. So what does that contrast mean? And how should businesses across the GCC navigate this moment? To unpack all this, I'm joined by Adrienne Doolan, founder of SustainGlobal, board member at the UN Global Compact UAE, and regional head for the Coalition for Social Development. Adrienne has long been a bridge between policy and practice, and her work with SMEs in the sustainability space gives her a unique view on what's working and what's not. Adrienne, thank you so much for being with us.
You are very welcome. Delighted to be here.
To start, how would you describe the current moment in global sustainability? It feels like we are in a state of flux, actually.
Yes, I would agree. There was already sort of withdrawal from various things, but now since I think January of this year, with the US new presidency, I think there's been a lot of backtracking, because I think in the US they've made it sort of almost easier with statements like drill, baby, drill. That was really difficult to hear that, and especially when given the climate science, we know we need to be working harder than ever. So I feel, there has definitely been huge backtracking, and you can see it from various companies. But I think, this is due to economic situations also now because of the impending tariffs. Are they going to happen? Aren't they going to happen? So it sets all economies on jitters. And unfortunately, sustainability is still one of those tick box exercises and not completely where it should be within people's business strategy. So it tends to get put on the back burner for the next time that it needs to be touched.
Absolutely. And the more we hear terms like ESG, backlash, greenlash, a lot of green fatigue, especially in the West. What are the things that you're seeing, from your vantage point? Is this something that is just a sort of a temporary recalibration, or is it something more systemic, according to you?
And I would hope to think that it would be a recalibration, because if I would think that companies and countries are going to stop working on sustainability, then I think we're going to suffer and see dire consequences. Because the climate science is absolutely unequivocal now that we need to start with our greenhouse gases and decarbonization. It is so important. And I think that's also evident of what's going on in this region as well, heat-wise. And we had the hottest May on record, with the temperatures being reached over, I think, at one day, 51 degrees in a region in Abu Dhabi. And I was just actually reading a post from Diana Francis. She's the climate scientist from the Khalifa University in Abu Dhabi. Mm-hmm. And she was saying that the 51 degrees that we saw in May were based on, and I'm quoting her now, based on attribution analysis, where the climate shift indexes show that the global warming has made this heat wave 5 times more likely.
Wow.
So I've seen her many times speak at climate talks from the German embassy and that, and they are alarmed as to what's happening, and our region is going to heat up more. So you cannot afford to backtrack. Look, in the EU and in the US, and ESG has become so politicized as well. And I don't think for the GCC it's necessarily a setback. I think I can see this as an opportunity, mm-hmm. where I think we should start tracking our own course in the region.
Yeah,
I think we should start looking at the Western trends, because if we continue to do so, nothing will get done in the region. So I think we should start looking to our solutions, and then with the national goals that have already been set. And I think we'll move past just tick boxing on ESG and start actually working on what's most important in our region. Forget the rest of the world.
Yes.
Because if we keep yo-yoing from what's happening in the EU to what's happening in the US, I don't think we'll get anywhere. And then each time it's an excuse for inaction.
Absolutely. And I think this actually brings us to the next question. So, of course, we're both based in the United Arab Emirates, and we've just seen that the government passed its climate laws. And it happens while, of course, we see a lot of global uncertainty in the sustainability space. So that's definitely a bold move. What do you think this signals to the private sector and to the region at large?
I think it's showing now that we're ready to, for the first time, that we're taking responsibility for these net zero commitments. But you can't continue to say we're going to reach net zero by 2050, but actually not have any law or mandates or otherwise to show how we're actually going to get there. And we know, not just regionally, but we know globally that companies, private, corporates, nobody's going to work on anything unless they're actually forced to do it. That's just the nature of the beast. So I do believe that this climate law now will start to show accountability across every industry, from academia to the private sector, across the ministries, everything. So I think this is really showing our responsibility, that we're not going to turn back now. We can't turn back because our region is, as I said, definitely going to be warmer. It's, that's a scientific fact. So if we do not start to work now, then we will not reach net zero. That's impossible. So I think the climate law here shows significant commitment from the UAE government. And I know that in Saudi as well, there's huge commitments on the Saudi Green Agenda as well. So I have hope for the region, but we need to stop looking at what's going on in the US and the EU.
You just mentioned Saudi companies, which really helped us expand our focus from the UAE to the wider GCC region. How are these GCC organizations responding to this tighter requirements on sustainability and net zero targets that regional governments have announced in the past few years? Are these companies speeding up, and are they ready for what's next?
So if you want to take the KSA first, I would almost say that some of them are moving faster, but I think that's due to the PIF fund, which, is very specific on how their businesses that are funded by them need to be operating. And in the sustainable space, I think there's a lot of investment also going into sustainability. I was at the COP16, the Biodiversity COP in Riyadh in December, and I saw up on the main stage huge announcements from corporates such as Al Marai, Al Safi, all of these companies putting millions into sustainability. And so there's lots of investment happening in Saudi, which will. So it is making people do something.
Yes. What about the UAE?
Yeah. So here, yes, I'm getting onto that. And so in the UAE, I'm not sure that companies are really ready, but they're going to have to be ready, because by May of 2026, the fines, which are anything between 50,000 and 2 million, are going to start kicking in. And unfortunately, that's what it seems to be needed for organizations to actually start taking effect. I was just thinking that maybe if we can show companies, and with using AI or digital technology, and of course you guys are the experts at this as well, if we could actually show companies that if they don't start taking action now, what they are actually looking at, their risk assessments.
Yeah, the cost of inaction.
The cost of inaction is going to be huge. And if I can show that to a company, I believe I can get them to start taking action. Yeah, look, I mean, we need laws, we need mandates. We see it. It's not just here. We see it globally. In the EU, if there was nothing would be done either. If there were no mandates, no laws, nothing would happen. Unfortunately, because we have a lot of very short-term thinkers in our current world leaders, and climate change needs long-term thinking. We see the climate plans, the climate science rather, and talks about hundreds of years. And that's the problem, actually, because then people say, well, it's not going to affect me. I'm not going to be around. But unfortunately, it is. And if we don't start decarbonization, I mean, CO2 emissions take around 300 years to leave the atmosphere. So if we still continue to do as we're doing, then we will see severe consequences for our planet. I mean, the planetary boundaries were about to hit the 7, 9. Then we will not live in a decent way within Earth systems any longer.
So you mentioned some large organizations also in Saudi Arabia that you're seeing are taking very fast action. You mentioned about huge investments, but I would like to understand also from your point of view, how are smaller players actually engaging with this change, how they are navigating all of these policy shifts? Do you think that they're ready? Is there any support that they're needing at the present time that they might are not receiving?
Yeah, I mean, look, I work a lot with the SMEs, especially with a whole community of impact SMEs that we have. They're obviously we're quicker at making decisions. We're lighter on our feet, so we can take action faster than your average corporate. But those impact companies, homegrown businesses as well that are working on, waste management and recycling, food recycling, waste recycling, any of these things that they're doing. It's happening, but it's very slow because there is no investment coming. And that's, again, so you have the SMEs who are willing and able, but, well, not able completely because they need more support from the government. We don't generally have grants and that here, not seed funding. And so what tends to happen is an awful lot of SMEs come from outside, from Europe or from the EU. They've already shown a little bit of revenue, so they're very exciting for a venture capitalist. Of the homegrown ones.
Yes.
And I think it's really important because you won't reach net zero without everybody, right? It needs the whole community to work on this. So the SMEs definitely need more support. And there's loads of nature-based solutions, tech solutions, digital solutions. There's everything within the SME arena, but they need more support.
Yes. And are you seeing any innovative solutions actually coming out from these SMEs in the region that could actually help achieve those net zero targets?
Yeah, I mean, look, I see from within our community so many people trying to work on say waste management now because they want to rid the country of the landfills, right?
Yes.
But where is the waste going to go if you haven't started educating and creating awareness within communities as to, segregating waste? So, if your solution is to throw everything into a waste to energy plant, that's not the solution, right? That makes it easy. But there are definitely lots of small companies that are creating brilliant solutions and tech solutions. And there are many, but, trying to look at energy waste, water waste within buildings, because retrofitting is really important. And a lot of developers are not interested in retrofitting because it's all down to cost.
Yes.
So this is where this UAE climate law will be really important. And I believe, we need to get the SMEs on the supply chain. We need to get them into procurement level. And we don't have price parity. With these sustainable solutions, generally, there's no price parity. But, what price do you want to pay for survival on this planet?
Yeah, this is probably where internal carbon pricing might help move things in the right direction, I guess. Looking ahead, Adrienne, so given all of this that we discussed, the pushbacks, the mixed signals, but also the progress that we're seeing in this region, how should we stay focused and how should we keep pushing when the global leadership seems so fragmented?
Look, I think as impact-driven leaders that we're gone beyond waiting for others to lead. So we'll start to build regional resilience, I think, on our own. And we can do that. I think within this region, my hope sort of lies with the youth, because obviously you have a really young population in this region. And I think, and they're very educated and they get it and they know what needs to be done. We need a major course correction, but, not just on economies, but also on humanity as well, right? So, yeah, I think there will be more, and there's a lot of more entrepreneurs starting up here as well. I think a lot of people are tired of greenwashing.
Yes.
There's definitely, since COP28, there's much more of a narrative on sustainability within the region as well. So, yeah, I still, as I keep harping back, but I think that this climate law, if implemented, will be a big game changer.
100%. So I guess I might have already an answer from you, but I'll ask that anyway. So what gives you hope right now in the sustainability space? You mentioned a younger generation.
Yeah, the youth, definitely. For sure, the youth. And there's one other thing I think maybe, but that's not particularly pertaining to this region, but the indigenous populations, they seem to be getting more of a listen to now. And I think that's really important that we educate even regional-wise on indigenous populations, because they are so close to nature. They have our solutions. What else gives me hope? I mean, the climate law gives me hope.
Yes.
And I would hope that we can get businesses to stop treating sustainability as like a PR or a CSR exercise and treat it as we're going to survive. Yeah. And then I think we just have to look at the critical risks for our region. World warming, I think 2 times faster than the global average. So I think, we saw last year in April, those extreme floods, which had huge economic consequences. Now, thank God we haven't seen it again this year, but these are the things that are going to happen. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we are going the right direction, but we need support, because a lot of the solutions, I feel, come from the impact SMEs, and they're not getting enough support.
So finally, if you could leave our audience with one call to action, either for business leaders or policymakers, so what would it be?
I think my call for action would be from every corner of society, actually, because I believe we all have, every corporate, government, every academia, it's all made up of individuals. We all need to take responsibility and stop, we need to start acting now. The cost of procrastination is going to be way too high. In action, not just on the financial side, but on the Earth's resources and how humanity will continue this planet. So my call to action would be each individual take responsibility, and don't just put the onus on governments, but businesses also need to start waking up and we need to start creating world leaders. And let's start with regional leaders who are willing to stand up and say, and we're doing this because we know it's the right thing to do.
Adrienne, thank you so much for such an insightful conversation. In a moment where the global narrative feels shaky, voices like yours help ground us and remind us that progress is still very much possible. Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability Unplugged. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and if you did, stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. Until next time, I'm Jessica Scopacasa, and this is Sustainability Unplugged by Gaea.
Thank you.